Hey everybody, Riot Mort here, and it is time to talk about Teamfight tactics into the Arcane and do our PBE rundown. I'm so excited to share the hard work from our team, from our set lead Sean, Julian, Ryan, Milo, Winston, Tori, Peter, and so many other people that contributed to this set. This is a big deal. Into the Arcane, our 13th set, and it's going to be a banger. There's a lot to be excited about in this set, a lot to talk about. I can't wait to share it all with you here. So hopefully by now, I'm filming this Saturday afternoon. Arcane Season 2 is out, the first 3 episodes. Hopefully you've had a chance to check those out. If you haven't, highly recommend it. Very high quality media there, so you should check that out. But if you haven't yet, that's okay. But for this set, we've decided to go very deep into the Arcane and base a lot of stuff off the show. So there's lots of cool to talk about. Let's dive right in. I won't keep you waiting. This is a PBE rundown. We are going to have a short PBE cycle. It will go live later this week, but it's definitely going to be a shorter cycle since the set goes live on November 20th. So if you want to check it out, this is what you can expect on the PBE. So here we go. All right, on the one cost side, and I've ordered this by tanks first, then damage dealers. So our tanks are Amumu, Aurelia, Singed, Steb, Trundle, and our damage dealers are Darius, Draven, Lux, Maddie, Morgana, Powder, Vex, Violet, and Zyra. And hopefully the first thing you notice here is Steb, Maddie, Powder, Violet. We have a bunch of non-League of Legends champions that are from the Arcane show that our team worked really hard to create and put into TFT. So that's really cool to see. And you're going to see there's a bunch of these units. So really proud of the team for that, which is really cool to see. From there, I'm going to try to do a quick rundown on what you can expect here. Amumu is a tank with no mana, just procs a lot of... he has that normal flat DR that's really good. If you can get him early with like a Gargoyle Warmogs, he's probably the best one-cost tank. Doesn't scale as well as everybody else, but a really good opening tank if you can get him going. Aurelia is a reprint. She's got that whirlwind that protects her, does some damage, and then strikes back, so good tank. Singed is a pretty cool tank where he gives himself durability, like 50% DR for a few seconds. But the cool thing is he then throws back a buff that will buff somebody in the backline and give them a huge burst of attack speed for a few seconds. So it's not often you see a tank that can support the backline, but Singed can do that really well. Steb is your typical bruiser frontline. He heals himself for a bit. One of the twists with Steb, though, is that every time he heals, he also heals nearby allies. So there's actually some setups you can do using things like Redemption that allow him to heal quite a bit if you want to get like a strong bruiser frontline with heals. And then there's Trundle, pretty basic tank, hits, heals, bites, no big deal. Good stuff there. And then we have our damage dealers. Darius is going to do a spin with his axe, apply a little bit of a bleed, pretty cool. Draven's going to be throwing those axes. That's what Draven does. Catches the axes. He's a Ginsu's user, Deathblade, stuff like that. Lux, this is going to be similar to Set 9 Orianna, where she's going to throw out a small shield, and then her next auto will hit really hard and chunk for like 700 magic damage. Not baseline, but with items and stuff. So Lux is pretty slow at killing, but decent in the opener. Maddie is that sort of one-cost sniper paradigm that has a higher mana cost, but when she reaches her spell, instead of firing one big shot, she fires like 6 small shots that all add up to a lot. But if you get the kill early, it'll like splash to a new target. The shots can miss though. She is a one cost, so beware of that, but definitely does some good damage, and you get like an early Shojin IE, put that on her, she can be pretty good. Morgana is a dot champion, 40 mana, applies a dot on people. With an early Visionary opener, we'll talk about Visionary later, you can apply dots pretty well. Really loves casting items. The base damage on her spell is really high, so make sure that you get her casting quite a bit. Then we have Powder. Powder is definitely a champion worth talking about here. We don't usually print one cost like Powder, but Powder is a high mana cost that can be reduced by family. And then the spell is a very large explosion. If you're somebody who doesn't like your backline getting destroyed, don't group them up and don't let the monkey walk to your backline, because it goes boom. And she does a lot of damage. So definitely one of the biggest impact spell one costs we've ever printed. Definitely counterplay around that and stuff like that, but watch out for Powder. She can be explosive. Vex is a pretty standard 60 mana, shoots her spell, has some bonus AoE, so pretty solid spell. Violet, another exclusive champion here. Frontliner who likes your BT Titan Sterix, does some rapid fire punch combos and can do some pretty good damage. And then Zyra is going to shoot her Vine out, hit a target. It doesn't stun, or I think it stuns the first target it hits, and then it splits into 2 and hits 2 more targets for extra damage. Zyra reroll actually can pump out the damage, so if you're looking for another 1-cost reroll, you could play Zyra. Yeah, so there's a decent amount of rerolls here. Darius and Draven work well together. Lux and Zyra work well together. Maddie and Steb. Powder and Violet, and even Morgana and Vex. So definitely some good pairs here if you like those 1-cost rerolls. On the 2-cost side, our tanks are Leona, Rel, Set, Vander, and Vladimir. And then our damage dealers are Akali, Camille, Nocturne, Renata Glask, Tristana, Urgot, Zeri, and Ziggs. Leona, pretty basic tank, gains a shield that gives her durability, fades away, does some AoE damage, nothing crazy. Rel is an interesting one in that she's another tank. She jabs her target and actually will steal some of their armor and MR to make herself a little tankier. Not a lot or anything, but, gonna help her be pretty tanky. Definitely worth investing in if you've got a lot of Visionary as well, because that'll get her casting more often. Set is a reprint. Set's that Set that we saw, I believe it was in Set 9, who would grab 2 people, jam them together, and stun them. So you definitely get him casting quite a bit. Vander is a really cool tank. Obviously, he's the father of the family, but the big thing here is if you remember Set 10 Cassante, who had that low mana cost, he would duck like this for a bit, protect himself, and then punch really hard. Vander's similar spell, but the twist here is the spell gets more powerful the more 1 and 2 costs in your army. So if you want to play like a 1 and 2 cost reroll, then get to level 8 and have 8 units that are 1 and 2 cost, Vander's punch will hit like a truck. So pretty cool around comp building. Family is a reroll comp, which we'll talk about later when we get to the traits. But really unique twist for Vander here. Vladimir is your pretty standard. We've seen this before where he's that frontliner who casts, deals damage, heals a bit. So pretty good tank, scales with Sorcerer pretty well. Akali is a really interesting melee champion that's probably one of the harder champions to play. But what she actually does is she hits her target. It's a pretty high mana cost. Then she hits her target, dashes back, and then dashes back towards them, hitting them really hard. But she does kind of aggro drop sometimes, and so she can be really good in the early game. Scales really well with that quick striker. But yeah, pretty solid opener. In fact, really the best openers we find are like Nocturne, Akali, Camille. They're melee champions, and in the early game, their weakness isn't as pronounced. So really good openers if you can get them going. Camille is pretty cool. She's a 25 mana spell, and the way it works is basically she does like a flip kick. So it's like auto, flip kick, auto, flip kick. But the flip kick, what it does is it looks at the target and it says, which do you have more of, armor or magic resist? If you have armor, I'm going to hit you for magic damage. And if you have magic resist, I'm going to hit you for physical damage. So she actually has like the first adaptive spell that we've ever seen. If it's a tie, she'll default to physical. But pretty cool to see how it'll flip. The good news is, no matter what, it scales off AD, so your item build doesn't change. You still build her like, you can go IE, Titans, BT. Blue buff's actually not bad on her. But no matter what, it'll just change the magic type to be what it needs to be, which is kind of neat. Nocturne, pretty basic. He's going to auto attack real quick. Every few autos, he's going to spin, gain a boost, keep doing that thing. A little bit like a Blender Nocturne light. Yeah. Renata's spell is going to hit one target really hard, and then everything it passes through is going to get a shield. So you can do some pretty cool positioning with Renata if you want to get some shields on your team. Tristana is pretty cool. If you like the stacking champions, Tristana's spell is a big burst, kind of like Namzi, if you will. It's a big cannonball. If it kills, the extra damage will pass on to the next target. So you want the spell hitting really, really hard. In addition, every target the spell kills, she's going to gain permanent AD. So if you can get an early Tristana with like an IE, you're going to get a lot of kills. You're going to stack up a lot of AD. We've seen this get as high as like 70, 80% bonus AD. So yeah, pretty neat. And then that scales really well with Artillerists, which we'll talk about later. Urgot is kind of like Nocturne, Camille, and Akali. Really good opener, stage 2. Is tanky. He's got a bunch of different traits you can work with here. Artillerist, Pit Fighter, Experiment. And just pumps out a lot of good auto damage. The spell's not really that insane, but it's just more damage. And so, again, if you run into like an Urgot 2 on 2/2 with 2 items, you're like, oh god, I might not be able to deal with that thing. So Urgot's pretty cool. Zeri. Zeri is our Ginsu's user for the 2 costs. Her spell is literally every 3 autos do a bigger zap, so you definitely want her autoing a lot. I find that like Ginsu's plus Quicksilver plus 1 more item is usually pretty good. And then that works really well with Sniper because the zap has infinite range. So make sure that you use that. And yeah, if you like Ginsu's, Zeri's your champion. Also works really well with Firelight, which with another champion we'll talk about later. And then Ziggs. Ziggs is a pretty standard, throws a bomb. The bomb splits into 3 little bombs. Those bombs deal damage. Because he's a Dominator, he's going to want lots of casting items. So, like, honestly, his best build is, like, Shojin Nashers because of Dominator, which we'll talk about later. But pretty typical AP carry there. All right. 3 costs. Blitzcrank, Loris, Nunu and Willump, Rennie, Scar, Swain are your tanks. And then your damage dealers are Cassiopeia, Ezreal, Gangplank, Kog'Maw, Nami, Smeech, Twisted Fate, and Swain. Swain 2 times? You might be wondering what that's about. We'll talk about that when we get to there. All right, Blitzcrank, pretty standard tank, gains a shield. That shield does some bonus damage. Because he's a Dominator, the more he casts, the bigger that shield's going to get. So if you can get him really, really tanky, Blitzcrank can do well. But you're definitely going to want at least 2 Dominator in if you're playing like an Automata Blitzcrank tank game. Loris, another pretty standard tank here. One of the enforcers from the show. Has that sort of big shield, protects himself. He tanks really, really well. Yeah. Nunu. Nunu is a tank, but his spell is actually his ult, where he'll gain a bunch of durability, do that sort of big AoE, and then splash damage to anyone who's standing in that AoE. Also works really well with his experiment bonuses. So pretty cool tank there. And then if he's a visionary, so you can get him to cast a couple times a fight if you've got him really well equipped. Rennie is probably my favorite tank. I'll be playing Rennie a lot. Rennie is a 3-cost bruiser. Chem Baron's kind of a fake trait, which we'll talk about later. But what Rennie does is takes her chainsaw, lifts the person up, stunning them, doing a bunch of damage to them, and then healing from that, and then throwing them down. But she's just got generally good stats. That heal helps out a lot. So I'm a big fan of Rennie. And then Scar is another one. Scar, again, from the show. Pretty cool. Look at all these characters we're making. Scar is another champion that's really, really good. He throws out 3 little grenades that stun people. So it's kind of like Shen from the last set, where you get like 3 stuns. Works really well with Horizon Focus. But the big thing with Scar is he is very tanky because of Watcher and Firelight, which we'll talk about later. So if you get like a Scar Zeri reroll, you're going to be in a great spot. So pretty easy comp to play, and Scar will be one of those painful things that's really hard to get through. Okay, Swain. Swain is our first form swapper, and I think y'all are gonna love form swappers because you talk about flex play. Form swappers are flex play in a big way. What form swappers do is if they're in the front 2 rows, they have a spell. If they're in the back 2 rows, they have a completely different spell. They may as well be a completely different champion. So in the front 2 rows, Swain has kind of a spell you'd expect from him, right? He casts, goes into bird form. He's going to be healing during that bird form and being very tanky, doing a little bonus damage as well. Put him in the back row. Now all of a sudden he's a Shojin Deathcap user who's shooting crows out and doing big damage to the target, as well as some more AoE damage with those crows. So you can play him as a backliner or a frontliner based on what you need. You know, in Conqueror, in Sorcerer, he ends up being as a frontliner. But if you're like want to play Conqueror with some AP items, you can play him as a backliner. Pretty neat. So I really enjoy that. Yeah. Cassiopeia, kind of a blue buff Shojin user. Again, another Dominator. Dominators you're going to find really love their blue buff Shojin Nashers. But shoots a target. Every 3rd shot is like a bigger one. Pretty cool. Ezreal has some pretty good traits here. He's going to be shooting his auto attacks hit pretty hard. Going to be shooting that big AoE ult that he's got. Not the the R ult, but more like the hits a target and explodes in an AoE ult. So, Gangplank. Gangplank in the front row is going to be your typical BT Titans Sterix user. He's got like a slash that does really good damage to a single target or some AoE if there's a bunch nearby, and then heals himself. In the back row, he's going to be applying these like explosive grenades to people, and then at full mana, he's going to trigger them all, which do big AoE explosions. So in the back row, he's more like a Ginsu's IE Shojin Deathblade kind of user. So, yeah. All right, Kog'Maw. Kog'Maw's another really cool champion. We made an attack speed champion here that doesn't use Ginsu's. Kog'Maw's spell is I gain 25% attack speed for the rest of combat, and every, I think it's 3 times I cast this, I also gain range. So you want Kog'Maw to actually have like Shojin plus Archangels plus another damage item like JG, and he'll actually get to 5.0 attack speed pretty quick without that, at which point if you had a Ginsu's, it really wouldn't be that good because you'd already be capped. So pretty neat to see. Big fan there. Nami. Nami is an emissary, which we'll talk about later. You're going to see Nami in a lot of comps. Nami's spell is just the wave that bounces and like hits 3 targets for damage. Nothing crazy here. Good sort. But again, her emissary bonus, which we'll talk about in the trait section, is going to make Nami a very high desired champion, I think. Smeech. Smeech might get the award for the second most annoying champion in the set. Smeech is going to jump to the weakest low item champion and gonna slash them for a lot of big damage. It's really good if you're playing Chem Baron and want to make sure you get a couple kills. Smeech will jump to really weak targets and kill them. That being said, he does prioritize weak targets, so he's not going to necessarily jump to their like 3 item carry. He's not that like full backline access. But again, you're like 0 item carry right next to them, they might die. So look out for Smeech. And then Twisted Fate. Twisted Fate is an AP user. Throws out, every time he casts, he throws out 3 cards. One of them heals, one of them stuns, and one of them does some AoE damage. So Quick Striker plus Shojin here. He'll be tossing cards out really, really well. All right, 4 costs. Now we're getting to the good stuff. Mundo, Garen, Alawi, Elise are your tanks. And then Ambessa, Corki, Echo, Heimer, Silco, Twitch, Vi, Zoe, and Elise are your damage dealers. So, yeah. Mundo is going to be a really, really big tank. Loves Warmogs. This guy loves health. His spell is he regens a bunch, gets really bulky, deals some damage to nearby enemies. Pretty just self-tanky, but scales really well with HP. And again, he's a Dominator, so every time he casts, it's going to be bigger and bigger heals. If you can get him to like his 3rd cast in a 4 Dominator comp, he'll be healing a truckload. So definitely one of the best selfish tanks out there. Garen is also a tank that really likes HP, but he also likes armor and MR. He kind of likes both. The big thing is his HP gets shared with nearby allies because of his emissary bonus, but you do want that armor and MR to make sure he's tanky enough to go with his DR that he's getting from Watcher. So Garen's not quite as tanky as Mundo as far as selfish, but can make a team a lot better. Really plays well with other Watchers here. You know, if you want to play Scar plus him in that Firelight comp, that's a really good way to go. So, yeah. Alawi, definitely another really powerful tank here. Is going to like your Gargoyles, your Warmogs, your Redemptions, and is going to be able to slam targets, draining some health from them, staying alive for a long time. We find in our playtests, Alawi in particular, because she's a Sentinel, and 2 Sentinel is very flexible and very, powerful. Alawi and Elise get played a lot. Elise gets played a lot because she's a bruiser, and because when you put her in the front line, her spell is that typical 4-cost AoE CC spell. She's going to jump into the back line a little bit, kind of like the old Jarvan ult from set 9, and shoot a bunch of webs that's going to stun people in place. And the big thing is she actually has a heal that comes with the spell. So for the first time, it's not just the CC. She also gets to heal a little, which makes her scale pretty well with like AP. So yeah, those are your tanks. Ambessa is a really interesting champion. I really like Ambessa. She starts out at 2 range, even though she's a melee unit. And then she's going to be attacking with her chains from a wide range, at which point she'll cast her spell where she dashes in and like hits somebody up, kind of like her ult in SR. Then she switches to full melee gains a bunch of attack speed, punches a bunch, and then dashes away and does another spell. So she's moving all around. Works really well with like Edge of Night, BT, IE, stuff like that. But Ambessa pumps out the damage a lot, dashes around, can be pretty annoying. I don't really like Titans on her as much because she's much more damage focused, and then you kind of want her to drop aggro, so Edge of Night seems to be a lot better on her. Corki, probably the easiest to play 4 cost, just a solid, you know, build your IE, Last Whisper, Giant Slayer Corki. He's going to be shooting out these missiles that do a bunch of damage. Your typical 4 cost backline ADC. He's not a Ginsu's user by any means, so just does some big damage with that spell. Stacks really well with artillerists, so yeah. Echo kind of like Ambessa, really likes Edge of Night. You can go like Edge of Night, but he's AP, so it's like Edge of Night, Hodge, and then you've already got Ambusher. But his spell is basically he's going to send out these after images that are going to hit targets for big damage. His big weakness is if he gets targeted down, he's going to die. But that's why if you have like Edge of Night plus Firelight to heal him back up, he can stay alive. That's why I like the double Hodge here. But yeah, Echo's cool. Heimer is your backline blue buff user that he shoots 5 missiles, and then the next time he casts, he shoots 6 missiles, and then the next time he casts, he shoots 7 missiles and 8 missiles. So you want him casting a lot. He is a ramping damage champion. Those missiles are pretty cool. So yeah, definitely play him if you've got Academy or Visionary or just looking for lots of damage here. Silco is 90 mana. Silco is going to be... He's going to throw a vial that's going to release some monstrosities that are going to do some damage. Pretty high amounts of damage, kind of like Rise in the current set. And again, he's a Dominator, so every time he casts, it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. So we've actually found like Shojin Nashers to be really good on him. That being said, if you also have a JG's pretty good too. Twitch is our backline sniper. He does like Ginsu's. He's someone who can use Ginsu, so if you want to move the Ginsu's from like Zeri to Twitch. He also just likes Deathblade. But basically his spell is he's going to be, you know, doing that spray and pray, shooting those ults all over the place, and they pass through targets. So you want him attacking as much as you can. Twitch does big damage here. Twitch is also pretty easy to play. Vi is going to be your Titan Sterix BT user. Vi doesn't necessarily do as much damage as like Ambessa, but the big thing is Vi has a shield every time she casts, and her mana cost is pretty low. She's going to hit her current target really hard and slam them down, which does a big line shockwave that also can do some small AoE damage. But she can do a lot of damage, but she's more like a mix, like tank and damage, which is pretty cool for Pit Fighter. They kind of need that. But yeah, I like Vi. You know who I don't like? Zoe. Zoe gets the award for the most annoying champion in the set. Zoe is a sorcerer, and her ult is she's going to throw out this bubble that's going to bounce around the map. And what this bounce usually finds its way to doing is hitting the back line. So let's say you've got your 3 cost Scar that's really, really tanky. Well, Zoe's the kind of champion that goes, I don't care, and bounces that bubble to the back line and kills the Zeri anyway. Zoe's the kind of champion that's going to make you want to build some healing on the back line or even an Edge of Night. Zoe pumps out the damage. So if you like not having to worry about a tank, play something like a 7 Rebel Zoe or a 6 Sork Zoe, and Zoe will do pretty well. Now you might think that might be it, but I did skip one. Elise in the back line. If you want to play like 6 Bruiser and you need a carry, or maybe you're even just playing like Swain frontline, Elise backline, what you can do is put Elise in the backline. She'll stay in human form and shoot out 4 spiders that do some pretty big damage. And so here she's a Shojin death cap kind of user. So it's really up to you, and that's why it's kind of cool how like Swain and Elise work. You can go Elise front, Swain back, or Swain front, Elise back. That's up to you. But yeah, Elise is a backline AP mage if you put her in the backline. Otherwise, she's that frontline AoE CC. So, all right, and then we have the 5 costs. All right, Caitlyn. Caitlyn's interesting in that her attack speed is only 0.55. Her animation is so good, though. It's like every auto is like snipe, unload the shell, snipe, unload the shell. It feels so good. Having a 0.55 attack speed, though, means she's really good with Silvermere Dawn. Plus 120% attack damage on that Caitlyn. Woo! As far as her ult goes, though, she actually summons a battleship that's going to drop bombs, and every bomb that gets dropped, Caitlyn's going to snipe the target that gets hit. So you get a little bit of AoE damage with these big Caitlyn spell snipes that are really powerful. We find that Caitlyn isn't the best solo carry, but a really good duo carry with like Vi, or you can have it with Maddie in a vertical enforcer comp. But Caitlyn definitely does some good damage, so pretty cool. Jace, our last form swapper, frontline and backline, he's damage. Frontline, again, something like a Titan's BT. Backline, you're going to get something like an IE red buff. But either way, he's going to provide some extra utility. Backline, he also comes with this, like, I forget what it's called, but it kind of looks like a big, like, hexstone thing. But basically, if you put that in the front line, it's going to enable him to, like, CC tanks and knock them around. And if you put him in the back line, that's going to give attack speed to everybody else in the back line. So definitely some options there, as well as he pumps out some damage by himself. Okay, Jinx. Jinx is absolutely the greatest spell our artists have ever created. I absolutely love this spell. They cooked so much. I'm not going to spoil it for you. But Jinx is a big AoE big boom. She's got 3 parts to her spell, and that third part, oh, it's so good. Shojin, IE, and then you can go like Giant Slayer is a good third choice. But enjoy the show. Jinx, I love this spell. It's so good. LeBlanc. LeBlanc is a Black Rose sorcerer. What's interesting about her spell is that she throws out these chains and it hits 4 targets. Those chains stay on the they do some damage. And then those chains stay on the target for a few seconds. During which time, any target hit that's got a chain on them that takes damage will also send an additional amount of damage to the other targets as true damage. Basically, it's like a secret damage amp on all 4, and you can get some really nutty things going on where, like, LeBlanc has chained 4 targets, Zoe's bubble is bouncing through them, each bubble triggering the chains on the other one, and it does a lot of big AoE damage. So LeBlanc's kind of a support mage in that regard, but also if you throw items on her, and then those chains kill, she gets 3 bonus auto attacks that are going to hit really hard. So she can carry, but also a very good support champion. Even if you just want to throw in like 2 sorcerer for the AP bonus and then get those chains, pretty good. All right, this is where I should be doing my victory dance because yes, we finally did it. Malzahar is a 5 cost. Ah. That's right, Malzahar is a 5 cost. I'm so happy. So what does Malzahar do? He's going to basically do his Q, and everyone hit is going to get a dot up to 5 dots. It's always 5 dots. So if you hit 1 person, that 1 person has 5 dots. If you hit 5 people, they each have 1 dot. Okay, sounds pretty basic. What's special? Well, the dots stack, as we said. If the target dies, the dots jump to the next target. Oh, and the dots never expire. Ever. So you get him going with like 8 visionary, and he's going auto, 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 5 dots, auto, 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 5 dots, auto, 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 5 dots, and now you've got 15 dots out there bleeding them dry. So he gets pretty nutty and can poison targets really well. Really good with Zhonya's, by the way, because what'll happen is he'll be Zhonya's all the while all his dots are ticking like crazy. Not to mention the way Automata works, which we'll talk about later. It procs based on instances of damage, so if you get a lot of that going, Automata's proccing a bunch. Pretty cool. All right, Mordekaiser. Mordekaiser's pretty basic in the sense that he's got kind of a slow attack speed. I believe it's 0.55. He's going to gain 100 mana. He's going to transform, grow big, and now every auto is going to be this giant slam. This just like really impactful slam that even to tanks will chunk like a third of their health and do an AoE shockwave. He also gains Omnivamp during this, so he can do a lot of damage, kind of tanky, kind of bruisery. Like, this is probably the most powerful champ fantasy Mordekaiser we've ever printed, which is neat. Rumble. Rumble is a Junker King. His ult is pretty basic. He's going to do his ult, to shoot the wave of fire. If it hits up to 5 targets, great. If it hits less than 5, for every target less, you're going to get a mana refund. So what's interesting is actually against a solo tank, what'll happen is he'll ult, get a big refund, ult quickly again, get a big refund, and like he can actually melt things down pretty quick. Where the twist here is Junker King. Junker King says every 3 turns you play Rumble, you're going to get offered a shop where you can buy an upgrade for him. It'll show you 2 upgrades, or you could pass and take spare parts, which will give you like a little gold. But if you take an upgrade, he'll gain an extra part of his spell that's happening in addition, and you can get up to 5 of these. So if you get like a 3-2 Rumble and keep upgrading him, by the end, he kind of has like 4 or 5 different parts of his spell. He's got this really powerful mech that's doing a bunch of things. And in addition, he's a Sentinel. So I feel like you're going to see Rumble in a lot of comps just because he's a Sentinel. But also you can get things where it's like he self-destructs when he dies, or he's doing extra damage to tanks. So definitely be on the lookout for Rumble. If you like that sort of upgrade fantasy, try to get all 5 upgrades with Rumble. There you go. And then finally, Savika. If you've watched the show, Savika has this cool slot machine arm that the second we saw it, we were like, we got to get that in there. We got to. It's too TFT. So Savika has this trait called High Roller, which basically every time she casts her spell, the slot machine spins. Based on what it hits, you get different versions of her spell. She has like 3 or 4 different outputs, but then there's also like the jackpot version of the output. She's definitely the most high variance 5 cost we've ever made. But generally, the thing to remember about her is her job is to kill tanks. So like, let's say somebody has a Blitz 3 with 3 items. Savika is going to be really good at taking that down, whether it be with her true damage flamethrower or her ability to knock them and possibly knock them out of the arena. So Savika is definitely going to be that pit fighter melee champion that you're going to be afraid of, and you're going to curse when that slot machine does not go in your favor. So pretty cool. All right, we did it. We got 2 champs. Still a lot to go over though. Hopefully this video doesn't end up too long. Academy. Academy is a trait that I think a lot of you players that like to be adaptable are going to love. The way it works is every game, there are going to be 3 sponsored items. They're not random. They're definitely a bunch of pre-done tables. So here, for example, you can see that Shiv, Ginsu's, and Dragonclaw are the sponsored items. Now, when you put more and more of the trait in, you're going to get copies of those sponsored items. So, for example, if you're running 5, you're going to get a Static Shiv, then a Ginsu's, then a Dragon's Claw. Great. But in addition, you're going to get more damage amp and health based on how many copies of that item you can get. So, for example, if you want to build, I don't know, say a Heimerdinger with triple Static Shiv, great, because now you're going to get a bunch more damage amp. You're going to get all that stuff. And so you end up with like slightly suboptimal items, but the extra stats from Academy make up for that. And so there's some really cool versions. One of the most insane we've seen was when Ionic Spark was a sponsored item, and then somebody got the augment that makes your Ionic Sparks do more, and they had like 7 Ionic Sparks on top of Academy champions, and it can get pretty crazy. So definitely take a look at what those sponsored items are. If you have the right spot for it, play it. You know, again, you have to kind of be adaptable though. All right, Automata here is basically you gain a crystal when you deal damage or take damage, I believe. At 20 crystals, they then blast their current target, dealing magic damage plus 18% of the damage dealt since the previous blast. They also gain armor and magic resist. So, again, this is based off instances of damage. It is damage done, by the way, not taken, sorry. Instances of damage done. And so, for example, like a Mumu, who's shooting his little sparks every second, if he's hitting like 3 tanks, you know, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 20, boom, gets this bonus blast that does a lot of damage. And so if you have 6 Automata, or if you have an Automata emblem, people who do instances of damage can be very powerful here. So, all right, Black Rose. This is our summon trait this time. It's a 3, 4, 5, 7. You're going to get a Chained Scion. So it's going to be placeable right away on the map. You can actually have the summoned Scion go in the back or the front. But basically what happens is after 5 casts from Black Rose champions, or when he drops below 65% health, he gets freed and he'll be doing his thing. At 3-piece, kind of some extra frontline. 4-piece, he's going to be able to do more damage, grow stronger. 5-piece, he gets really big and he goes to full health when he's freed. And then 7, he gets even more powerful. So pretty cool summon trait. It's a trait that's kind of hard to get into, but also like the augment that gives you a Black Rose emblem is very powerful. Summon traits typically, when they have that emblem that you can just +1 it early, ends up really good. So if you find somebody, for example, on 2-1 who happen to have a Morgana, Vlad, Cassiopeia, and the emblem, all of a sudden you've got a 4 Black Rose Scion that you're dealing with on 2-1, which can be pretty tricky. So, all right, family. This trait is easily going to be one of the fan favorites, especially for people who like to reroll. It's made up of Powder, Violet, and Vander. So you run 3 of them, and when you play all 3, their mana gets reduced by 25, and they gain 12 damage reduction. Pretty cool. But that's not what's neat. What's neat is there's a family emblem. And so the amount of memes you're going to see where you're like, I got a family emblem. Hey guys, Silco's part of the family. And now you have a Silco in the family. You're going to love it. You're just going to love seeing who you can add to the family and being like, ooh, here's my family. I had one game where I had Violet, Powder, Vander, Jinx, and Vi all in the family. And it's like, look, we're a happy family again. It's great. Which is really just a lot of fun. And the nice thing is when you get the emblem, it's a pretty big deal because at 4, that mana reduction is going to go to 30% and they're going to get 20% attack speed. Pretty big boost, actually. And if you somehow can get 5 early, whoo, this gets fun. Because you're going to get 40% mana reduction. And then every combat, based on the number of surviving family members, you're going to get progress towards a heist topside, which is going to give you a bunch of rewards. So if you somehow hit 5 family early, expect to have one of those games where like, oh, I just got some duplicators, or oh, I just got this random reward that I'm not going to tell you about. But yeah, 5 family will be one of those high roll moments that you're like, yeah, let's go. So, all right, Chem Baron. Oh, I could talk about Chem Baron for an hour. I'm not going to, but I could. Chem Baron is our high risk trait this set. Chem Baron is a little different than before. It's not quite Fortune. It's not quite Underground or Heartsteel. It's a weird mix of it all, and it's our first high-risk trait that you don't usually want to pivot out of, because it doesn't just give you a bunch of, Bloodthirsters and Radiant items and whatever. What Chem Baron does is, basically, as you play Chem Baron, you're going to get stacks. You can see here, at 3-piece, you're either going to get 15 or 30. If your loss streak is 3 or higher, and that means, for example, you could play not Chem Baron, lose twice, put in Chem Baron, your first loss will count as 30 because your loss streak is 3. All that matters is your loss streak says 3 or higher. If you're loss streaking, you get even more. The more Chem Baron you play, the more shimmer you get, and your goal is to get as much shimmer as you can. Every time you reach 100 shimmer, you're going to be presented with an armory. That armory will have stuff that is illegal, and you can decide to take it. For example, at around 200, you'll start seeing some exclusive illegal items like Unleash Toxins, which might look kind of familiar. It's like 10 mana, 15 AP, attacks grant 5 bonus mana. Sounds like Shojin. After casting, launch 3 missiles at the current target that deal 100 magic damage. Not bad, so it's like a slightly powered up Shojin. And what's nice is if you don't know who to put them on, they say recommended users. These items can only go on Chem Barons. And that's one of the reasons why you're probably not going to pivot out of it. Because if you get like an Unleash Toxins and then you pivot out, who are you putting it on? If you don't have at least 3 Chem Baron active, these items go away. So you definitely want to say that. But as you get higher and higher, you'll notice with the same item, it's going to get powered up. So for example, maybe if you get to like 300 or 400, you get Unleash Toxins 2, which, now is giving even more mana, more AP, and those missiles are hitting harder. And then if somehow you can get up to like 500 or 600, you might get the tier 3 version of the item, which is Perfected Unleash Toxins. And there's like 8 or 9 different items here. I don't want to spoil them all for you. If you can get up to 600 or 700, who knows what other surprises you'll find. But there's all these really cool items to play with that are going to make your Chem Barons do some pretty wacky stuff. In addition, every armory you pass is more health for the trait. So let's say you get to 400. That means you passed 3 of these armories. If you're running 5 Chem Baron and passed on 3 armories, your Chem Barons now have 270 bonus health. And this can get pretty nutty. Like let's say you get to 600 with a 6 Chem Baron game. That means you passed 5 armories. 5 times 125. That's 625 health for your Chem Barons on top of the items you're getting. So if you can get up to like 500, 600 plus, you're going to get some really powerful stuff. And the armories, like I said, include a bunch of things. Could be some chem barons, could be some consumables, could be these illegal items. This is the high risk trait though. I have a lot of fun with it, but definitely one of those things that's going to take you a few tries to get used to, figure out your bearing. And again, you're going to want a lost streak, but figuring out when to lost streak, when to get your health up. So new twist on the high risk genre here, but hopefully you guys like it. Let us know what you think. All right, Emissary. Emissary is another really sick one. We talked about it briefly with Nami, but Emissary is a trait that kind of like Ninja back in the day. You either have 1 or 4. If you try to run 2 emissaries, you're going to lose their bonus. The emissaries are Tristana, Nami, Ambessa, and Garen. Each of them have a different bonus. For example, Ambessa gives 2 armor and MR to your team for each opponent you've already defeated this game. So up to 14 armor and MR. Garen is going to give the allies to his left and right 20% of his max health. So if you have like a Warmogs Garen 2, giving a lot of health. Nami, I love Nami because again, it's just allies attacks grant 2 bonus mana. Pretty cool in like a sorcerer comp. Just here, everybody, have a almost a half a Shojin. Cool. And Tristana gives all allies 6% attack speed per star level. So if they're 3-star, that means they get 18% attack speed. So each of these is a pretty unique bonus. Or you can play all 4 of them, get all the bonuses, and those 4 emissaries gain 300 health and 30 damage amp. So pretty neat. Like I said, I'm a big fan of Nami. I play a lot of Nami. Ambessa's pretty good. Tristana obviously good for reroll, or just play all 4. So pretty neat. Conqueror. Conqueror is a pretty basic trait, but hopefully one you guys enjoy. You play Conqueror, you get AD and AP for your Conquerors. Great. But in addition, every time a Conqueror gets a kill, you're going to get a stack of Conquest. The higher you're playing, the more stacks. So for example, if you're playing 2 Conqueror, a kill is 1. If you're playing 6 Conqueror, a kill is 6. As this ramps up, kind of like Sugarcraft before, you're going to get different rewards that are going to keep coming out. So it's like a mix of Sugarcraft and more stats. But it's like very bloody. It's like bloody Sugarcraft. I don't know. But definitely get a lot of kills. If you can get 4 Conqueror early, definitely recommend playing it. If you can get 6 Conqueror early, some of the later rewards get pretty wacky. And then if you somehow hit 9 Conqueror, which is going to require 3 emblems, all of a sudden those conquest rewards shoot up to 20x. This is one of our prismatic traits. And yeah, good stuff. All right, Enforcer. All the Enforcers from the Arcane show. Enforcers gain a shield and damage amp at the start. So if you're running forward first Enforcer, they're going to gain a 25% health shield and 25% damage amp. Cool. In addition, the highest health enemy units become wanted. You'll see like this like targeting symbol over them. So if you're running 4 Enforcer, 2 of them, their 2 highest health units, are now wanted. When you kill those wanted units, your whole team is going to gain, or sorry, Enforcers, not your whole team. Enforcers gain 30% attack speed. So what'll happen is like, if you're running like 8 Enforcers, there's 6 wanted targets, you kill like 3 of them, and now you're also running around with 90% boosted attack speed, which gets pretty cool. This is one of our easier to play origins that you can play. Just get it going pretty early, hit 4 Enforcer early, play off the Camille, move to the TF, play around the Vi. Should be pretty easy to play. And if you somehow get 3 emblems, you can hit 10 Enforcer, which gives you a massive shield, massive damage amp, and you start confiscating enemy items. So, yeah. All right, Firelight. We talked about this one briefly. This is a weird trait, but every 6 seconds, Firelights will sort of hoverboard dash away. While dashing, they attack with infinite range and heal a percentage of the damage taken since their last dash. Generally, this will help like Zeri and Echo get out of the way, but really I found the power of this trait to be around Scar, because Scar, you get this really powerful Scar 3 with Bramble, Dragonclaw, Warmogs. He's a tanky beast with 4 Watcher, and then every 6 seconds he's also undoing 40% of the damage he was taking. Woo! So that's what makes Scar such a tanky beast. Again, it can also save Zeri, get her out of a jam. Echo can heal some of that damage after his Edge of Night procs. So Firelight's a pretty neat comp. Yeah, and the emblem does some fun things. You get to see, imagine a Mordekaiser flying around on a hoverboard. Rebel. Rebel is sort of the Jinx-oriented origin here. Rebels gain some max health, some stats, some AD and AP. After your team loses 30% of their health, a smoke signal appears, granting Rebels 60% attack speed for 4 seconds and extra power for the rest of the combat. The big thing here is 7 Rebel. If you can get to 7 Rebel, you kind of get that Tempest like AoE stun. It's going to stun everyone on the enemy team for 2 seconds, which is pretty good. So definitely if you're going to play Rebel, try to get to vertical 7 Rebel. And if you somehow get to 10 Rebel, that's another one of our prismatics. The smoke signal triggers at combat start and every 6 seconds. If you didn't like Tremors, this is worse than Tremors. So Scrap. Scrap is back. Combat start. Any components held by scrap units will temporarily turn into full items, and you gain a shield for each component held. This is a pretty defense-oriented trait. It's actually surprisingly hard to play, but if you can pull it off and plan around it, you can end up with some really big shields. We're talking like 1,200, 1,400 health shields we've seen. And if you somehow can get to 9 scrap, whew, it's not quite a prismatic, but it's going to start turning those items into radiant items. So 9 scrap is like kind of like 9 frost. It's not prismatic, but it's really, really powerful. So, all right, then the last origin is experiment. This one's kind of tricky. The way it works is every experiment has an experiment bonus. So for example, Zyra's is like spells do 30% bonus true damage. Mundo's is like gain some bonus health, and every time you get a kill, gain more health. But what's interesting is you're also going to get these laboratory hexes. So for example, if you're playing 3 experiment, you're going to get 2 hexes. You get to choose who are on the hexes, and whoever's on the hexes, all the experiments gain their bonuses. So for example, if you're playing Zyra, Urgot, and Mundo, and you put Zyra and Mundo on the hexes, all 3 of them gain Zyra and Mundo's bonus. That's why if you go 5, you can get a 3rd bonus, and then if you go 7, those bonuses are going to be doubled. So figuring out the right arrangement is going to be pretty tricky. I expect this is a trait that a lot of you won't play in your first few games, but once you figure it out, you'll be like, oh, I get it. And once the guides start coming out where it's like, oh, make sure you put Twitch here and Mundo here and things like that. But definitely not the easiest trait in the set. So, all right, classes. Hopefully I can plow through this pretty quick. Classes aren't too crazy. Ambushers are crit 1. It allows their spells to crit, and they gain bonus critical strike chance and damage. If you get to 5, you also gain some durability. Cool. Artillerists, this is our ranged AD trait. Every 5 attacks, they're also going to launch a rocket that deals 125% attack damage. They gain some AD, and if you have 6, those rockets do double damage. Cool. Bruiser, 2 Bruisers always good because your team gains 100 max health. In addition, Bruisers gain 20, 45, 75% health. Cool. All right, Dominator. This is one I want to talk about because this is a big deal. The way Dominator works is they're going to gain a shield at the start of combat. Fine, it's a shield, no big deal. But more importantly, they gain AP based on the mana spent. So for example, Mordekaiser has 100 mana. If you have 2 Dominator, the second he casts a spell, 25 AP. If you have 6, second he casts a spell, 70 AP. Why is this a big deal? Well, let's take Silco. I believe Silco's mana cost is 80. And so the first time he casts, you're going to gain 70% of that, which is 56 AP. But if you can do like Shojin Nashers, you're going to cast 2, 3, 4, 5 times, and that's where the AP gets pretty wild. So like all the Dominators like to cast a lot. My actual, like, to be honest with you, like concern is that all their best in slots are basically cast a lot. And so if you have the right items for them, their ceiling is going to be very high. If you can only get them to cast once in a fight, they're actually going to feel kind of weak. But man, if you've got the right setup, the other thing is it's a very expensive trait. You notice it's 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5. Like to get Dominator going, it's definitely not something you like start the game off of, but this has one of the highest caps. I expect to see a lot of high-level players playing Dominator because they've pivoted into it and they figured out how to get it going. They've got the right setup. They've hit the Mordekaiser. So Dominator is going to be a tricky one. Form Swapper, we already talked about it. Most of the complexity in Form Swapper is which one they want to be. But if you want to run a few Form Swappers, they either gain damage reduction if they're in the front or damage amp if they're in the back. So again, if you want to run Elise in the front and Swain in the back, Elise will gain 15% damage reduction. Swain will gain 20% damage amp. Cool. I love Form Swapper. Very flexible trait. Pit Fighter. Pit Fighters gain 15% Omnivamp for running 2 of them. Cool. And they deal bonus true damage. And then when they drop below half health, they heal a little bit. Kind of like the old Dawnbringer, actually, from 5.5. So if you have 6 Pit Fighter, they drop below half health. They heal 40% of their health. They've got 15% Omnivamp. And everything they're doing is doing 20% bonus true damage. Cool. 8 Pit Fighter, kind of a mini chase trait. Not prismatic, but that 99% heal and 50% bonus true damage. Pretty good. Quick Striker. Quick Strikers move faster and gain attack speed based on the target's missing health. So if you run 2, you've only got 20% attack speed, but as the enemy gets lower and lower, you get a bunch more. So this is quite a bit of attack speed, actually. I think Quick Striker openers are very powerful. For Quick Striker, in addition, on target death, they'll dash to a new target and gain a shield for 3 seconds. By the time you see this, this might be a % health shield, but the point is they gain a small shield for 3 seconds to keep them going. Sentinel. Sentinel, like I said, you're going to see a lot of Sentinel splash because this is your team gains armor and MR, your whole team. Sentinels gain triple. So 2 Sentinel by itself, team's got 12 armor and MR. Cool. And the Sentinels gain 36. You want to run 6, whole team's got 45 armor and MR, and they've got 135 armor and MR. So Sentinels can get pretty tanky. Sniper. Sniper's back. They deal more damage the further away they are. 7, 16, 35, and gain +5 attack range. A sniper emblem with 6 sniper can make some pretty silly long-range melee units if you want to try. Sorcerer. 2 Sorcerer is always good because your team gains 10 AP. And then Sorcerers gain 20, 50, 85, and 100. If you run 8, their abilities also reduce their target's damage by 25%. Pretty neat. Visionary. Visionaries say whenever Visionaries gain mana, they gain more. And this means anything. You want to run a 6 Visionary Mana Zane? While the Mana Zane is ticking, it's going to give 80% more mana. So Visionaries generate a lot of mana. Really good with Shojin. It's unlike Scholar. Like Scholar, you didn't want to put a Shojin on because it was like additive. This is multiplicative. So blue buff is good. Shojin is good. Any mana generation is good here. There's good mana generation augments as well. So yeah. And then we have Watcher. Watchers are pretty easy. They gain durability. While they're above half health, that's higher. By the time you see this, I think 6 will have been nerfed. But yeah, Watchers, another tanky comp you can put together. I think that's it on the trait side. But holy crap, we still have more to go. Okay, let's talk about the set mechanic. The Anomaly. This is pretty cool. This is our set mechanic this time. And the way it works is on 4-6, it happens at the same time every game. On 4-6, the Anomaly appears. And it puts a hex in the middle. And you get to pick 1 champion to send into the Anomaly to come out with a buff. So for example here, the buff that you can see is Laser Eyes. Constantly deal 80% AP magic damage per second in a 3 hex line and burn enemies for 3 seconds. So this is really good on like an AP frontliner. If you don't like this, you can re-roll it for a gold. And so let's say you really want to have like a good Zoe Anomaly buff. You're going to roll a bit and find a good Zoe one. Or maybe you want a tanky one for your Alawi in this comp. You're going to roll for a tanky one. And so basically you get to kind of pick what special buff you get to put on whatever champion you want. And it's 4-6, so it's late enough that you kind of know what you're playing, but how do you want to enhance your comp? So pretty neat. It's a pretty low impact in the sense that like everyone gets one. It happens at the same time every game. They're all generally balanced around each other, but having a cool understanding of what you're looking for can make all the difference. There are 60 of them in total. I'm not going to read every single one. If you want to check these out, you can pause, take a look, read them yourself. But like I said, there are 60 different ones, and generally it will try to cater to your board a little. Don't get me wrong, it's not going to be perfect. I bet some pros are going to look at stuff and be like, why is it showing me this? But it's got some help there. But to give you an example here, we have Bully. Bully says gain 18% damage amp, doubled against units with lower star level. Well, probably pretty good if you're playing a 3-star champion that wants to deal more damage, needs damage amp, and there's not a lot of other 3-star champions in the lobby. Pretty good. If not, maybe you pass on that and take Berserker range if you're playing like Ambessa. Ambessa is going to gain 20 AD and AP tripled when you're below 50% health. Cool. Vi is also actually pretty good with that. Or maybe you want Cull the Weak. Gain up to 100% critical strike chance based on the target's missing health. Every 3 seconds, target the lowest percent enemy health in range. This can be good on snipers. This can be good, like I said, I like it on Mbessa. But yeah, and so like I said, you can look through and there's a bunch of these. I'll jump to the next page. Here's a bunch more. Some of them are really simple, like giant sized. Gain 1,000 health and grow greatly in size. Yep, if you want your tank to be even tankier, giant size. Others can be a little trickier. Freestyling, gain 4.5% damage amp for each activated trait you have. Well, if you've got a lot of activated traits, and notice it doesn't say non-unique, you can get, this up to like 20, 30% damage amp if you play your cards right. So, yeah. And again, I'll leave it here for a second. I'm not going to read them all. One of my favorites here, though, is Dramatic Entrance. If you have 2 strong tanks, what you do is put one of your strong tanks, give them Dramatic Entrance. Combat start, they leap off the battlefield, kind of like the old set run off the board. After 60 seconds, they come back with 60% increased max health and stun all enemies for 1.5 seconds. So it's like they jump back onto the board, do an AoE stun, and you've got a 60% bigger health tank. So Mundo with this, for example, can do pretty silly things as long as you have like the Blitzcrank to stay alive long enough before the Mundo comes in. So you can get pretty creative here. Here's the third page. Again, some are basic here. Mage Armor, gain armor and magic resist equal to 40% of your ability power. Sounds like a Swain one, right? Swain frontline, who's running Sorcerer, has a bunch of AP, gains more armor and MR based on that. Pretty basic. Others a little more complicated. Nothing Wasted, I love this one. You put this on like a Zoe, for example, and anytime an ally dies, gain 100% of their current mana. So your ally dies, Zoe gains more mana, Zoe's throwing more ults, Zoe's melting backlines. Pretty cool. Even Kill Streak, if you're ahead, gain 30 mana each kill. For those of you that used to like, oh god, what was it called? There was the augment that did this, but if you can get those kills and refresh your mana, you can do some pretty big damage here. Even Into the Unknown, I like this one. If you're willing to play without your carry for 2 rounds, then they come back with 50 AD and AP. So if you can sack 2 rounds and you're ahead, get them pretty strong. Yeah. And here's the final page. Ultimate Hero. Star up a 3-star 1-cost champion to 4 stars. If you want that to be your Anomaly buff, cool. Do that. Slow Cooker. Slow Cooker's a great one. Every second, deal magic damage in a 1 hex radius equal to 4% of their max health. Radius increases every 6 seconds. So, if you survive 24 seconds with this big, imagine a Loris 3 with Warmog's Gargoyle. Well, at 24 seconds, he's now got an AoE hex the entire size of the board, hitting for 4% of his max health every second. So, pretty cool. We've seen some cool Slow Cooker builds. Yeah. So there you go. Oh, Scuttle Familiar. That's the other one I really like. Imagine you make a really powerful Mundo with, like, again, Warmog's Bramble Dragonclaw, and then you give him Scuttle Familiar. As soon as that Mundo dies, well, out comes a Scuttle Familiar, which I believe we had nerfed this to 100%. But basically, it's a Scuttle Crab that doesn't do anything, but has the same health, the same armor and MR, again, that can be extra tanky. So, pretty cool if you have a really strong solo tank and need to buy time for like your Dominator comp or something like that. Cool. And again, some are easy. The Finisher. The champion's attacks and ability execute enemies at 15% health or lower. Pretty basic. Easy to use. So yeah, that is our set mechanic. All right, now let's talk about all the other changes you can expect. The first, we talked about this in the learnings article, but there is no portals anymore. Now you just have an opening encounter. Now, even since we posted the article, we have changed the numbers. No encounter, we published at 40%. It's going to go down to 20%. We know a lot of you at launch are looking for some of these sort of for fun. What we'll probably do is launch in this sort of a little more hectic state with people having these higher variance ones like Scuttle Puddle, First Augment Prismatic, Wandering Trainer. And then over time, we might reduce it as we hit to the back half of the set and the competitive side. But again, we know especially the players who are playing early on really like the fun stuff. There's only one new one here, which is Wind Up Monkey. I won't spoil it for you, but basically what happens is at 3-5, one of 4 things will happen. So enjoy what those 4 things are. I won't spoil it yet, but pretty sure this one will be pretty well liked. So, but we'll keep an eye on it. Powder's just trying to help, you know? All right, the item UI. I've talked about this on Twitter, but if you missed that, the item UI has completely changed. Items are no longer these little cubes that sit in the corner. There's now an entire item UI right next to your trait tracker that has 10 slots that expands to 20. So if you're ever doing some crazy hectic cash out or big transition or something like that, you're gonna have plenty of room for your items. You can rearrange them, you can do stuff like that. And the other thing to note here is that reforgers and removers stack. So you can see here, I have 2 removers. They don't take up 2 slots. It's pretty nice. So pretty great. I'll tell you the truth. The first 1 to 3 games, it's gonna take some to get used to, especially if you've played TFT for the whole time since we've been out. It takes a bit to unlearn. But once you do, it took me about 3 games, it's better. It's a lot better. You're gonna love it. You're gonna be like, this is so much easier. But like I said, your first few games, you're gonna be like, where's my item? Oh, right, they're over there. Oh, where's my, oh, you know, it's gonna take you a second. So, but give it a try. I know change of version can be a terrible thing, but I promise you, get over that hump, that learning hump, and this is a better UI. It's better for the long-term game. I promise you'll like it. All right, other changes. To level up to 10 is going back up 8 XP. We found without charms, there's a lot of gold in the game. In a lot of our internal playtests, we were getting to 10 a little easier than we'd like. So level 10 is going to be a little harder. Not 8, not 9, just 10. Mana generation from post-mitigation damage is going to go down from 5% to 3%. The TLDR of what this means is the amount of mana you gain from taking damage is going to go down. This becomes really necessary when balancing 3-star tanks and melee champions. So they're just going to get less free mana for existing, less likely to go infinite when they take damage, heal, take damage, heal, take damage, heal. So, item removers. We added the new rule in the middle of the last set where you would get an item remover if you didn't already have one. That led to some weird feels bads where you'd like force yourself to use it to make sure you get the next one and you didn't really need to. So we're simplifying it. Now it's just, you gain an item remover every PBE round. Cool. If you already have one, now you'll have 2. Cool. Good stuff. And then the last thing is a really minor one, but crests and crowns will no longer be offered on 2-1 in the Wandering Trainer encounter. We like Wandering Trainer, but there's just something about like, okay, I got the portal emblem on my golem into a free 2-1 portal emblem. That's a little over the top to start with. We don't mind it at 3-2 and 4-2 so much, but at 2-1 it's a little much. And there were certain traits in this set, especially like Black Rose and Chem Baron, that having that big a start early was just not okay. So that is going to be a bit of a nerf to that portal encounter. All right, augments. Again, I'm not going to read every single augment here, but the augment team cooked. This is one of the sets where we're doing a very large augment refresh. There are a lot of new augments. So you can pause the video and take a look. I'll cover some of my favorites. My favorite silver one is right at the top here. Power up. Your next augment is 1 tier higher. So you take this on like 2-1, and then 3-2 comes. Everyone else gets a gold. You get a prismatic. I love this one. Who knows if it's too strong? I don't really know. Being down a silver but up a prismatic compared to a gold is pretty interesting. But I find myself always taking it just for the shot at being up a little bit of power. So that one's fun. Titanic Titan, definitely take it if you're a streamer and you want your chat to laugh at you. I think that one's hilarious. Also works really well with Chem Baron. It's just extra health. Let's see, are there any other really big ones here? Glass Cannon, I think, is going to be one that's a very high elo power one. Champions that start in the back row will have 20% less health, but 12% damage amp, which is really good for a silver augment. Rigged Shop, if you like 3-cost reroll. Your next shop and every 4 shops contain all tier 3 champions. Pretty neat. So, oh, Dumbify and Golemfy. These ones are crazy. So it only appears on 3-2. If you take it, you lose all your units, you don't get any gold back, but you gain a dummy with 70% of their combined health. So you can end up with like a target dummy that you traded your units for that has like 5,000, 6,000 health. But it does kind of hit your economy, so you have to kind of build back up from that. Yeah, there's some silvers. We have some golds here. Again, not going to go over all of them. Some pretty fun ones here. Vampiric Vitality. Your team gets 12% Omnivamp, but more importantly, heal for 25% of the damage you deal to enemy tacticians. If you lost streaked and then are playing something like Pit Fighters and want to turn it around, being able to heal all the player damage you do is kind of nice. It's pretty cool. Starry Night, I'm a big fan of this one. 1 and 2 cost units in your shop have a chance to be 2-star, and that increases with player level. So what'll happen is you take this, and then at level 8, like a lot of your shop, anytime you see a 1 or 2 star, will actually be, or 1 or 2 cost will be 2-star, allowing you to get like 3 costs later. Just pretty neat. I like that one. Let's see here. Other big ones. Oh, Warpath. Warpath is a hard one to get to work, but if you do, whew, this is another one, kind of like a high risk augment, right? But the way it works is you can take this on 2-1. After dealing 60 player damage, which the earliest, I did this in one of our playtests, I pulled it off on 3-5. You gain a chest of high tier champions and items. And so like imagine on 3-5, you're win streaking, you've done a bunch of player damage, and then you just get a bunch of like 5 costs and some extra items for a gold augment. It's pretty wild. But other games you could be stuck not doing the 60 player damage and just being down a gold augment. So it can get pretty tricky. And last one here, this one's interesting. I'll be curious what you guys think of it. Shop glitch. I'll shot call here. I don't think this is strong, but we definitely have some people on the team who think it's wildly strong. But basically the way it works is you take this on like 3-2, and during non-player combat rounds, aka the PBE rounds, your shop will refresh for free every 3 seconds for 30 seconds. So you basically get 10 free rerolls every PBE round for the rest of the game, starting at 3-2. But it does mean like from 3-2 to 3-7, you're down a gold augment, then you get the 10 rerolls, and then you go on, and then you get the 10 rerolls, and it's like pretty interesting. So like I said, my read is it's not strong. Others it is strong, so I'll be curious what you think. Last one I'll talk about here. If you like Call to Chaos, a magical roll will be one you'll really like here. Roll 3 dice, gain rewards based on their total. What'll it be? Who knows? But I know one high roll, for example, is just, here's your Tactician's Crown. So for a gold augment, getting a Tactician's Crown, not bad. Not bad. Second page of gold augments here. Again, you've got Glass Cannon 2, another one I think is going to be really good. Forward Thinking is a crazy one here. Lose all your gold. Just straight up lose it all. After 6 player combats, get it back, and another 80 gold. So if you have a good spot on 3-2, you can take this, just be like level 6, already have your board going, and then, 4-3 rolls around, boom, you now have like 130 gold to work with, and you can turn that around. So that's a pretty fun one. Golemify, we talked about this. Lose all units, gain a golem with 70% of their combined health and 50% of their attack damage. So that one's pretty cool. And then the last one here, this is an interesting one, but we talked about the Anomaly. There's an augment here called Another Anomaly. After the Anomaly round on 4-6, gain an equipable item that duplicates the chosen anomaly, and you can put it on another champion. Can't be the same champion, but you could actually you can take your augment and turn it into 2 of the anomaly buff, which is kind of neat. So, yeah. And then we have Prismatics. As always, Prismatics definitely changed the game in a weird way. I realize I didn't put the names on them here, so I apologize for that, but you can still see the effects. You'll just have to guess the names here. Sorry about that. But we have stuff. There's one, this big one here is the next non-player combat round will drop an additional prismatic orb. So you guaranteed a prismatic orb. And if the game has any gold or prismatic orbs, they contain even more loot. I forget the name of this one here, but this is a fun one. Every time a player is eliminated, choose one of their items to keep. So in a way, this prismatic can be up to like 5 or 6 full items, which is pretty good for a prismatic. You just have to, you know, knock those players out. So there's the lots of belts one. Gain 4 giant belts, and your belts also grant plus 75 health. The Zeke's Herald one. There's the buff one that gives you a red buff, a blue buff, and a greater duplicator. Yeah. So again, good stuff here. Oh, the Moonlight one. Combat start. Upgrade a random 1-cost unit to 4-star for that combat and grant it 15 AD and AP. And this can work on a 1-star 1-cost unit. You can just take a 1-star 1-cost unit in your comp and they'll become 4-star, which is pretty cool. So, yeah. That's not all. We've got a couple others here. We call these one lightning bolts. They're similar to other augments that have existed in the past, but just slight variations on them. So some pretty fun ones here. Of these, my personal favorite, AFK is gone, but BRB is here. You cannot perform actions for the next 4 rounds. Afterwards, gain 2 completed item anvils. Pretty fun. 2/1 only augment. Piercing Lotus replaces the previous Lotus. Blazing Soul's pretty cool. Support mining. So, delayed start. This one used to be called Head Start, and we kept finding people loose streaking with it, but delayed start basically says sell your board and bench, gain 4 random 2-star 1-cost champions, and then you can't use your shop for the next 3 turns. So, yeah. All right, and then if you're curious, oh, we still have trait augments. So each of the traits obviously have the augment that they can use. These are the ones, and I'll be honest with you guys, if anything this set is like off balance right now, it's probably the augments. Augments are the things where you can see here we've cooked a lot of unique stuff, but you know, we want to do that. We want to make fun content, but it's probably the stuff that's also like the roughest. So we'll have to take a look. We'll be balancing pretty quick though, but yeah. Probably there's some fun ones here like scrap, top of the scrap heap. Every 8 components scrap champions convert, gain a random component up to 6. So you can get 6 components from a gold augment. That's pretty good. Yeah. Sentinels gain 8% bonus armor and magic resist. Every 4 seconds, their next attack deals 100% of their resistances of magic damage. Pretty cool. So, Void Caller. This one's cool. You play a Visionary comp, and as your Visionaries spend mana, you summon Voidlings, up to 5 Voidlings. So you can make extra frontline as you're playing, which is pretty neat. So, yeah, again, pause the video, read them all if you want to check them out, but a lot of augments. Okay. This is a big deal here. So we have hero augments. Those are coming back, and we talked about these. 1-cost champions are silver. So for example, we have Mad Chemist. Turn your Singed into the Singe that runs around. Cool. Or Blade Dancer. Change your Aurelia into the Aurelia that dashes and kills people. Cool. We have some gold ones here, like Crimson Pact that turns your Vlad into a ranged champion, or Gloves Off that turns your Vander into a damage dealer. But in addition, we have a new type this time, and these, we call them Team-Up Augments. Team-Up Augments unlock a new trait with 2 champions that don't usually work well together. For example, you've got Sisters. You'll gain a Vi and a Jinx. When Vi scores a takedown, Jinx gains 50% attack speed. When Jinx scores a takedown, Vi gains 40% damage. Some of you may remember that from Gizmos and Gadgets. We have a couple prismatic ones even. I really like Geniuses here. Gain an Echo and a Heimer. When Heimer casts, Echo releases 3 after images. When Echo casts, Heimer fires 3 missiles. So pretty cool. Gets you to use champions in ways you might not normally. Ambessa and Caitlyn. Menaces is a cool one. You get a 2-star Powder and a Silco. When fielded with Silco, Powder gains Dominator but no longer benefits from family. And then when her monkey explodes, it creates 3 of Silco's monstrosities. So pretty cool one. Jinx and Savika for Unlikely Duo. Vi and Echo for Reunion. So pretty cool concept here. Goes with the show really well. I even like what could have been, where you have Vander and Silco working together. Just really fits the theme of the set, which is like tell the stories with the characters in the way you want. So definitely check those out. Those are fun. Finally, we have our emblem augments. Nothing should surprise you here. They're emblems. The one thing I'll call out is Black Rose Crest is very good early. Black Rose Crest does not get a champion. Other than that, though, they all should be balanced. And just like before, if we have to make adjustments, we will. But they exist. Finally, if you're curious what augments we removed, here's a salute to all the augments that are taking a break this set. So, Escort Quest is going to be gone. Crash Test Dummies. Fortune Favors the Bold is going to be gone, so you're not going to see that augment anymore. Metabolic Accelerator. Stars Are Born. Sag. Sim Pack. Tiny Titans. Vertically Inclined. Stuff like that. Golden Quest, I believe, should be listed here. It might not be listed. Oh, might be on the other pages. Well, Golden Quest I know is gone too. So AFK is gone. Sag. Featherweights. Item Ladder. Precise Planning. Silver Veil. Upgraded Adventure. Assassin's Toolbox. Final Ascension. Marksman's Toolbox. Spellcaster's Toolbox. What the Forge. So, yeah. All right. And then we have a couple item changes here. And don't let me forget, there's one that's not on the sheet that I need to talk about, I think. I can't remember. Anyway, Blue Buff got one of the bigger changes here. Blue Buff now doesn't reduce their max mana by 10, instead gives them 10 mana after casting. So kind of the same effect, but a little less warping. So this is a bit of a nerf to Blue Buff. It is going to gain some more starting mana, but yeah, so a bit of a nerf to Blue Buff. Hand of Justice gets a big buff. Hand of Justice, oh, now I remember what it is. Okay. Hand of Justice is going to get the same thing where you get the AD, the AP, and the Omnivamp. But instead of it being random, if you're above 50% health, you get the offense. And if you're below 50% health, you gain the Omnivamp double. So that's pretty cool. Deathblade gets 5% more AD. Guardbreaker and Giant Slayer are going to get some of the damage amp pulled out of the condition, making them a little bit better to use overall. So Guardbreaker and Giant Slayer, now you'll see like Guardbreaker has that 10% and Giant Slayer has that 5% pulled out of that condition. Gunblade. Gunblade gets changed in that it used to be 15% Omnivamp and heal the lowest percent ally for 15%. Now it's 25%. Gunblade's a very good item. Do not sleep on Gunblade now. But most of the healing actually goes to the lowest ally, not the Omnivamp. Quicksilver. Quicksilver is going to be a little bit changed. The duration is going to be longer, so it should be more valuable. And then the one I forgot to add here because it came in a little last minute is Sunfire. Sunfire actually got a buff where it now gives 8% max health as well. So Sunfire now gets to be a better tanky item. Should bring it back to its former glory days. Pretty good to slam. That 8% bonus health should be pretty good. Lastly, on the artifacts, we launched artifacts in the For Fun patch to kind of get a grasp on them. We wanted to kind of push the envelope to see where we could. We did that now, and now we're going to be pulling back on them. There might even be changes after this. There's a few we're still unsure of, but Blighting Jewel is going to get 15 more mana. Deathfire Grasp is going to lose 5% amp and 15 mana. Hull Crusher, we're cutting the attack speed, and the AD and AP goes down to 20. Hull Crusher, we went a little too insane. So Hull Crusher is going to come back down. Should still be a very good item on champions that don't really need attack speed. So like Vi is going to really like Hull Crusher, whereas Ambessa is going to like Trinity Force more. Lichbane, actually we undershot it, so get some more attack speed. Light Shield Crest, we overshot it. The armor and MR is going down. And there's another nerf not listed here that came in hot. That is the shields now have a duration of, I believe, 4 seconds. So it's not just infinite health. Mogul's Mail is going to get a buff where the gold interval will go back down to 8 seconds. And Unending Despair, the damage got nerfed and the HP got nerfed a bit. And that's it. We did it. We made it. So, like I said, there's a lot of fun stuff to play with. Overall, we've been playing this set for quite a bit. I really enjoy it. I have a lot of fun with it. I hope you guys do too. When it goes to PBE, play it. Let us know. It is going to be a very short PBE, so I think our hard work will pay off, but let us know. Let us know if you see something that feels wrong, something that doesn't, but we have been putting so much love and care into this set that we really hope this is going to be one of, if not the best TFT set ever. So, yeah. All right, there you go. I've already been talking for a long time. My voice is giving. I'm going to go watch Arcane Season 2 with my wife and daughter. That's what I'm doing the rest of my day. So, yeah. Enjoy. All right, that's going to do it for me. Until next time, PBE, thank you, everybody. Enjoy the new set. And take it easy.